The day I walked out of rehab, my daughter was not waiting for me. The man she married had told her I had chosen not to come home. He had told the recovery center that she wanted no contact with me. Both lies carried his voice, but I did not know that yet. By then, he had moved his mother into my guest room, packed my late wife's belongings into donation boxes, and posted a Thanksgiving photograph from my dining table. The caption said, "Protecting your family sometimes means letting toxic people go." The toxic person was me. I was 62 years old, 60 days sober, holding $38 in a phone that had been dead for 3 weeks. The only person waiting in the parking lot was a man I had once helped when he had nowhere to sleep. He handed me a cup of black coffee and said, "Your daughter did not abandon you, Frank, but she did choose not to ask enough questions." My name is Frank Callahan. I spent 34 years building custom cabinets, restoring old staircases, repairing doors that had forgotten how to close, and teaching apprentices that a damaged piece of wood was not useless simply because someone had handled it carelessly. I lived outside Grand Rapids, Michigan, in a cedar-sided house my wife, Ellen, and I purchased before our daughter learned to walk. The house sat on 4 wooded acres with a detached workshop behind it, a stone patio Ellen designed herself, and a maple tree that turned so red every October that drivers slowed down to photograph it. I built nearly every cabinet inside that house. Ellen selected the handles, complained about the dust, and then showed the finished kitchen to anyone willing to stand still long enough. We had one child, Hannah. She was 35 when this happened, an elementary school counselor with patient eyes and the same habit Ellen had of pressing her lips together before saying something difficult. Hannah had been the center of our lives without becoming spoiled. At least, that was what I believed. She was bright, careful, and deeply uncomfortable with conflict. As a child, she would apologize when other children bumped into her. As an adult, she confused keeping the peace with allowing the loudest person to define reality. That weakness eventually became the doorway through which her husband entered every part of our family. His name was Grant Mercer. He sold high-end kitchen renovations for a regional design company, although listening to him talk, you would think he personally invented marble countertops. Grant was polished, charming, and always dressed as if a photographer might appear without warning. He remembered people's job titles, asked questions that made them feel important, and posted photographs of ordinary moments with captions about gratitude, leadership, and intentional living. The first time Hannah brought him to dinner, Ellen liked him immediately. I did too. Grant complimented my cabinetry, asked thoughtful questions about the workshop, and told me men who still knew how to build things with their hands were becoming rare. 6 years later, he would try to sell those same tools, while telling relatives I was too unstable to use them. But I am getting ahead of myself. Ellen died 4 years before I entered Lakeshore Recovery. Pancreatic cancer took her in 8 months. There was no graceful decline, no long season in which the family gathered, said everything important, and accepted what was coming. There were appointments, test results, hopeful weeks, terrible weeks, medication schedules, hospital parking garages, and one final morning when she squeezed my hand twice because she no longer had enough strength to speak. We had been married 37 years. After the funeral, people filled the house with casseroles and flowers. Everyone promised to call. For 3 weeks, the kitchen remained crowded. By the 4th week, the containers disappeared, the flowers died, and everyone returned to their own lives. That was reasonable. Grief makes you believe the world should stop because yours did. It does not. Hannah visited every Sunday at first. She brought groceries, changed the sheets, and tried to remove Ellen's coffee mug from beside the sink. I put it back. Grant repaired a loose fence panel and took charge whenever practical tasks appeared. I was grateful. I was also unbearable. I snapped when Hannah suggested donating clothing. I accused Grant of moving things. I stopped answering friends. I refused grief counseling because I had spent my life solving physical problems and believed feelings should respond to the same stubbornness. The drinking began with bourbon before bed. Ellen had kept 1 bottle in the cabinet for guests. I poured a small glass because sleeping in our bed felt impossible. The first drink quieted the house. The second made the empty side of the mattress less visible. Within 6 months, I was drinking before dinner. Within a year, I kept bottles in the workshop, truck, pantry, and one ridiculous place behind the towels in the upstairs bathroom. I told myself I still worked. I still paid bills. I still showered. I was not one of those men. Every alcoholic seems to know a worse alcoholic whose existence proves he is still fine. My worse alcoholic missed work. Then I started missing work. My worse alcoholic lied to family. Then I lied to Hannah about how much I had consumed. My worse alcoholic endangered people. Then I backed my truck into the workshop door with no memory of getting behind the wheel. Nobody was hurt. That became my defense instead of my warning. Hannah cried when she saw the damage. Grant stood behind her with one arm around her shoulders. "You need treatment," she said. "I need sleep." "Dad, you drove drunk. Across my own property. That does not make it safe. Stop talking to me like one of your students." Her face changed. I saw Ellen in that expression, which made me crueler. "You have spent your whole life trying to rescue people who do not want your help," I said. "Do not turn me into a project." Hannah left crying. Grant remained at the door. "You are going to lose her," he said. "That your professional opinion?" "That is the opinion of the man who drives her home every time you break her heart." I hated him for being right. Instead of changing, I drank more. The final collapse happened on Easter Sunday. Hannah and Grant hosted brunch. I promised I would arrive sober. I even believed the promise when I made it. Then I found one of Ellen's handwritten recipe cards inside a kitchen drawer, and grief came through me so suddenly that I poured whiskey at 10 in the morning. I arrived 2 hours late. Grant's parents were there. Hannah's co-workers were there. Children hunted plastic eggs in the backyard. I tripped on the patio step, knocked over a tray of drinks, and accused Grant of replacing me inside my own family. Hannah took me into the laundry room. "You cannot keep doing this," she whispered. "I am fine. You are bleeding." I looked down. My palm had been cut on a broken glass. "It is nothing." "Mom is gone, Dad." The word stopped me. Hannah was crying, but she continued. "She is gone, and you are making the rest of us disappear with her." I slapped my hand against the washing machine. "Do not use your mother against me. I am trying to keep my father alive." "Then stop treating me like I am already dead." Grant opened the door. I told him to get out. He asked me to lower my voice. I shoved him. Not hard enough to knock him down, but hard enough that everyone in the next room heard. Hannah stared at me, as though I had become someone she did not recognize. I left before anyone could stop me. That night, I sat alone in the workshop with blood dried across my palm and Ellen's recipe card beside an empty bottle. I understood that if I continued, Hannah would either bury me or learn to live without me. Neither option was love. I called Lakeshore Recovery the following morning. They had a bed available in 6 days. I poured every bottle down the sink and bought another one before sunset. That is addiction. It can watch you perform your own rescue and still convince you to sabotage it before bedtime. Grant drove me to the center. Hannah sat in the passenger seat. She held my hand in the lobby while I completed the admission paperwork. 60 days, I said. 60 days, she repeated. You will pick me up? Of course. 11 in the morning. I will be here before 10:30. Grant stood a few feet away, looking solemn. When the counselor asked who should temporarily handle urgent household issues, Hannah suggested herself. Grant said it would be easier if he managed practical matters because Hannah worked full-time and became overwhelmed by finances. I was ashamed, exhausted, and afraid I would change my mind if the admission took too long. I signed permission for him to pay utilities, monitor mail, and communicate with my employees while I was unavailable. I did not give him permission to sell anything. I did not give him control of my property. I did not give him permission to make decisions about my release. But people like Grant do not always need full permission. They only need enough access to stand near a locked door and confidently tell everyone else they possess the key. The first 2 weeks at Lakeshore were brutal. My hands shook so badly that I spilled water. I sweated through sheets. I vomited, apologized, and then apologized for apologizing. Sleep came in 20-minute fragments filled with dreams in which Ellen was alive but refused to look at me. Recovery was not peaceful. It was humiliating, physical, repetitive work. We sat in circles and described the people we had hurt without immediately explaining why we had hurt them. That rule made me furious because explanations had always been my escape route. I drank because Ellen died. I shouted because Hannah pushed. I drove because it was only across the property. Every reason reduced my responsibility until nothing remained except a sad widower whom everyone else had failed to understand. The counselors would not let me hide there. Grief explains the doorway, one of them said. It does not excuse what you carried through it. I called Hannah twice during the first month. The conversations were short. Grant answered her phone the first time and said she was driving. The second time, Hannah sounded distracted and frightened. "Are you all right?" I asked. "I am fine." "You do not sound fine. Grant says we should let you focus." "I called you." "I know. Has something happened at the house?" Silence. Then Grant's voice in the background. "Tell him everything is handled," Hannah repeated. "Everything is handled." I should have asked more. Instead, shame told me I had no right to question the people cleaning up after my addiction. That was how Grant used my guilt. He did not need to threaten me. He simply reminded me, directly or indirectly, that I had become difficult to trust. 9 days before my scheduled release, I called again. Hannah did not answer. Grant called the center later and told a counselor Hannah had developed the flu. He said she knew the release time and would contact them. 2 days later, a staff member told me the family had requested that discharge planning remain flexible. I insisted I was leaving on schedule. The counselor looked confused but said the decision remained mine. I left a voicemail for Hannah. "Thursday at 11. I will be waiting." Grant deleted it. I learned that later. On Thursday morning, I showered, shaved, and put on jeans that felt loose after 60 days without alcohol. A nurse handed me a manila envelope containing my wallet, house keys, a dead phone, and $38. I stood in the lobby watching the parking lot. At 11:15, I told myself Hannah was stuck in traffic. At 11:40, I told myself she had gone to the wrong entrance. At noon, a young woman walked past me and ran into her father's arms. He cried into her hair. I looked away because envy felt ugly after everything I had done to my own child. At 12:20, the receptionist asked whether she should call someone. I gave her Hannah's number. It went directly to voicemail. She called Grant. He did not answer. At 12:40, I stepped outside. January cold entered my coat immediately. There was a bus stop half a mile away. I had checked during one sleepless night because some part of me had suspected I might need it. I took 12 steps toward the road before someone said my name. Frank Callahan. I turned. The man standing beside a dark blue sedan was tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing a wool coat over work clothes. His hair had gone gray near the temples. I recognized his eyes before I recognized anything else. Calvin? Calvin Brooks had been 20 years old when Ellen found him sleeping inside an unfinished house. I was renovating in 1999. He had aged out of foster care, lost a warehouse job, and been evicted from a weekly motel. I wanted to call the police. Ellen brought him a sandwich. That difference summarized our marriage. Calvin stayed in our guest room for 3 months, worked in my shop, and saved enough to attend a technical program. He later moved to Detroit, built a successful commercial millwork company, and sent us Christmas cards for several years. Then life became busy. The cards stopped. We had not seen him in nearly 2 decades. Yet he stood outside Lakeshore, holding black coffee exactly the way I drank it. "How did you know I was here?" I asked. "I have been looking for you for 3 weeks." "Why?" He handed me the coffee. "Because somebody listed your joiner, planer, and 2 of Ellen's antique cabinets for sale online." I stared at him. "My tools?" I recognized the workshop wall in the photographs. "Who listed them?" Calvin paused. "Grant." The cold seemed to sharpen. Hannah would not allow that. "Hannah does not know everything he has done. Why are you here instead of her?" "Because Grant told her your treatment had been extended." "No. He told the center she wanted distance. He told her you had asked not to see anyone." "She promised." "I know." "Did she believe him?" Calvin looked at me carefully. "Yes." That answer hurt more than a lie would have. "Then she abandoned me." "Not exactly." "She did not call the center." "No." "She did not verify anything." "No." "She believed the man who said I did not want her." "Yes." Calvin did not soften the truth to comfort me. That was why I got into his car. He had rented a small furnished apartment for me near his Grand Rapids office. The refrigerator contained eggs, soup, sandwich meat, and a lemon pie, because Ellen used to make one whenever Calvin completed a difficult week at school. A note on the counter said, "One day at a time does not mean one day alone." I sat at the kitchen table and cried. Not loudly. I had done enough loud grieving. Calvin waited in the other room until I washed my face. Then he placed a folder in front of me. It did not contain dramatic court papers or complicated legal language. It contained ordinary evidence. Screenshots of the online tool listings. Photographs from Grant's social media account showing his mother, Beverly, sleeping in my guest room. A message Grant sent to a realtor asking what my house might earn as a luxury short-term rental after the owner transitions to long-term care. Receipts showing he had used my workshop debit card for restaurant meals, new clothing, and furniture delivered to Hannah's home. A printed group message sent to relatives. Frank's recovery is not progressing as hoped. Hannah and I are making painful decisions to protect everyone. Please do not contact him directly, as attention may trigger another relapse. I read it twice. He told everyone I was failing treatment. Yes. Did Hannah approve this? Her name is included. That is not what I asked. Calvin looked down. She did not write it. She also did not correct it. I closed the folder. I want to call her. You can. But you think I should not. I think you have spent 60 days learning not to react from the first feeling that enters the room. She is my daughter. And Grant has spent years learning how to make every conversation happen on his terms. What do you suggest? Stay sober, charge your phone, eat, sleep. Then decide whether you want truth or immediate relief. You may not get both at once. I hated the answer because it was wise. The first night in the apartment, I made a turkey sandwich and stood at the counter eating it. For 3 years, alcohol had made every quiet room dangerous. That night, quiet felt painful but survivable. I thought about calling Hannah and screaming that I was alive. I imagined her shock, Grant interrupting, me losing control, and every lie becoming another argument about whether the alcoholic was confused. Instead, I wrote in the notebook Lakeshore had given me. I am angry. I am sober. Both things can be true. Calvin helped me regain access to my bank account the next morning. Most of the money remained, but Grant had made several withdrawals and moved workshop funds into an account he called property maintenance. He had not stolen everything. He had simply begun treating my life as available. That was more believable, and in a strange way, more insulting. He was not a criminal mastermind. He was an entitled man who saw grief, addiction, and family guilt as permission. I removed his access. I changed the account passwords. I instructed my bank to contact me directly. I called my shop foreman, Miguel Santos, a man who had worked beside me for 18 years. When he heard my voice, he went silent. Frank? Still me. Grant told us you had gone into extended residential care. I completed treatment yesterday. Yesterday? Did he tell you to sell equipment? He said you were closing the workshop. I am not. Miguel cursed in Spanish, then apologized. He laid off the apprentices. Why? Said the business was finished. Call them. Tell them not to take other work yet. Are you coming back? I looked at my hands. They were steadier than they had been in years. Not today. But the shop is not dead. Grant discovered the removed bank access by lunchtime. He called 17 times. I did not answer. He sent messages that moved through predictable stages. Frank, call me. There is confusion. Then, you are making dangerous decisions too soon after treatment. Then Hannah is devastated by your behavior. Then, if you destabilize the family, I will have no choice but to protect her. Finally, everyone knows you are drinking again. That last message clarified the problem. Grant's power depended on my addiction remaining more believable than his deception. I forwarded every message to Calvin and turned off the phone. Hannah did not call. That silence became its own wound. On Sunday, Grant posted a photograph from my house. He, Hannah, Beverly, and several relatives sat at Ellen's dining table beneath the maple leaf chandelier I had built for our 25th anniversary. A framed photograph of Ellen had been moved from the mantel. The caption read, "Family is choosing peace, even when someone you love refuses healing." Hannah's smile looked wrong. Her body leaned away from Grant. But she was still in the photograph. Hundreds of people liked it. Several wrote that she was brave. One called Grant, "the husband every woman deserves." I wanted to drive to the house and tear the front door from its hinges. Instead, I attended an evening recovery meeting. I introduced myself as Frank and said I was 63 days sober. A man across the circle asked what had brought me in. "My family is eating dinner in my house while telling people I disappeared," I said. Nobody laughed. Nobody offered revenge. The group leader said, "Then tonight, your job is not to disappear from yourself." I went back the next week. Calvin and I began putting ordinary pieces of my life in order. We stopped the tool sales. Miguel reopened the workshop. My bank reversed 2 payments that had not yet cleared. I rented the apartment for 3 months instead of returning home immediately. That choice surprised Calvin. The house is yours, he said. I know. You could change the locks. I spent 3 years making that house unsafe. I do not want to return simply because Grant made it unsafe differently. Recovery had begun teaching me that reclaiming something did not always mean moving back into it. Sometimes reclaiming yourself meant refusing the setting where everyone knew your weakest role too well. 2 weeks passed. Hannah still did not contact me. Then a letter arrived at the apartment. My name and the address were written in her handwriting. Dad, I do not know whether this will reach you. Grant says you left treatment against medical advice and asked us not to contact you. The center will not tell me anything because I am not listed on your release form. I keep calling your phone. I am angry, but I am also scared. If you are drinking, please go back. If you are not drinking, please tell me where you are. I do not know what is true anymore. I read the letter 3 times. How did she get the address? I asked Calvin. She called Miguel. Grant does not know? Apparently not. The letter gave me hope, but it did not erase the question. Hannah had waited nearly 3 weeks before going around her husband. She had accepted too much, because his explanation allowed her to avoid confronting me directly. She had been manipulated, but she had also participated through passivity. I called her from Calvin's office. She answered immediately. Hello? Hannah. She made a sound like someone losing balance. Dad? I completed treatment on schedule. Where are you? Safe. Why did you leave without telling me? I waited almost 2 hours. Silence. Grant said, I know what Grant said. He told me you called the center. I did not. He said you wanted more time. I did not. He showed me a message. I did not send it. Her breathing changed. Are you sober? 70. 6 days. She began crying. I am sorry. For what? For not being there. Why were you not? I believed him. Why? Because you lied to me for 3 years. The answer hurt, but it was true. Yes, I said. I did. Every time I asked whether you were drinking, you said no. Every time Grant warned me something was wrong, you called him controlling. Then Easter happened. Yes. When he said you wanted more treatment, part of me was relieved. Because you thought I was safe? Because I did not have to face you yet. There it was, not innocence, honesty. Did you know he was selling my tools? No. Did you know his mother moved into my guest room? He said it was temporary while we cleaned the house. Did you know he contacted a realtor? Silence. What realtor? Did you know he told relatives I was failing treatment? He said the message came from both of us. Did you read it? After he sent it. Did you correct it? Her crying became quieter. No. Why? I was tired, Dad. I understand tired. I spent 3 years waiting for the call that you had killed yourself or someone else. Grant handled everything because I could not think anymore. Handling everything is not the same as deciding everything. I know that now. Do you? I want to. I closed my eyes. I loved her. I was furious with her. Recovery allowed both truths to remain in the room. I am not coming to the house today, I said. Grant cannot know where I am. Why? Because I need one conversation where he does not speak for either of us. What do you want me to do? Thanksgiving is next week. Yes. Are you hosting at my house? She hesitated. Grant invited everyone. Using Ellen's dining room? Dad, I'm not asking to shame you. I am asking whether that is the plan. Yes. Then have the dinner. What? Have Thanksgiving exactly as planned? Why? Because I am coming home after dessert. Hannah became quiet. What are you going to do? Tell the truth calmly. Grant will lose his mind. That is his responsibility. What if you lose yours? The question was fair. Then Calvin will take me back to the apartment. Who is Calvin? Someone your mother and I helped a long time ago. The person who picked me up when you did not. She began crying again. Dad, please. I am not saying that to punish you. I am saying it because the truth should hurt in the place where change is needed. On Thanksgiving morning, Grant posted a photograph of my front porch decorated with pumpkins and pine garland. Opening our home to family during a season of transition, the caption said, Our home. I attended a recovery meeting at 9. Calvin and I ate lunch at a diner. At 5:30, we parked one street away from my house. Through the front windows, I could see movement, candlelight, and silhouettes. My relatives had gathered around Ellen's table. Grant's mother occupied the guest room. My tools sat inside the workshop he had attempted to empty. My daughter was serving dinner while wondering whether her father would arrive sober. I sat in Calvin's car with both hands around a cup of coffee. "You can still leave," he said. "I know. Leaving would not make you weak." "I know. And going inside does not make you strong unless you stay in control." "I know." He smiled slightly. "Recovery has made you annoying." That is what the counselor said. At 7:45, Hannah sent one message. "Dessert is on the table." We walked to the front door. I rang the bell of the house I had owned for 29 years. Grant opened it. For 1 second, he did not recognize me. I had lost weight, cut my hair, and had not been visibly sober in years. Then his face changed. "Frank." "Grant." He stepped outside and pulled the door nearly closed behind him. "You cannot be here. This is my house. You are not stable. 80, 4 days sober." Hannah does not want a scene. The door opened behind him. Hannah stood in the hallway. Her face crumpled when she saw me. "Dad." Every conversation inside the dining room stopped. Relatives appeared behind her. My sister-in-law, 2 cousins, Grant's mother, Hannah's closest friend, and several people who had liked Grant's posts were all watching. I did not walk toward Hannah immediately. I looked at her. "May I come in?" It mattered that I asked. She nodded and stepped aside. Grant blocked the doorway. "This is a terrible idea." Hannah looked at him. "Move. You do not know what condition he is in. Move, Grant." He moved. I entered the house. The smell of turkey, cinnamon, and Ellen's furniture polish hit me at once. Her framed photograph had been placed on a side table behind a plant. I picked it up and returned it to the mantel. Nobody spoke. Calvin remained near the front door. Grant looked around the room, measuring the audience. "Frank left treatment without a safe discharge plan," he announced. "We have been trying to protect Hannah from another cycle." "I completed the program," I said. He disappeared. I waited outside for Hannah. "You called and canceled the pickup." "No. You told me yourself. Play the message." His expression changed. "What?" "The message I supposedly sent." "I deleted it." "Of course." Grant looked toward Hannah. "This is exactly the confusion we were warned about." I removed my Lakeshore completion card from my coat and placed it on the entry table. "Discharged January 12th at 11 in the morning. Program completed. No extension requested." Hannah read it. Her hand began shaking. Grant said, "A card does not prove what happened afterward." "No, 84 sober days prove what happened afterward." Beverly crossed her arms. "Grant has been carrying this family while you drank." I looked at her. "Your son moved you into my guest room." "Temporarily." "Without asking." "You were unavailable." "Unavailable is not dead." Grant stepped forward. "Nobody said you were dead. You told a realtor I was transitioning to long-term care." Hannah turned toward him. "You contacted a realtor?" "It was an evaluation, nothing more." "Why?" "Because your father cannot maintain this property." "I have maintained it for 29 years." "You drove into your workshop." "Yes, I did. I was drunk, irresponsible, and dangerous. I entered treatment because of it. My addiction does not become permission for you to take my house." The room became still. I turned toward the relatives. "I owe many of you an apology. I lied about drinking. I missed birthdays, shouted during phone calls, and ruined Easter." Hannah had every reason to stop trusting my word. "Grant did not invent my addiction. I gave him the easiest weapon a dishonest man could ask for." Grant nodded as though I had supported him. "Exactly. I am not finished." His face tightened. "My shame made me easy to control. Every time I questioned something, Grant reminded people I was an alcoholic. Every time Hannah felt uncertain, he offered certainty. He told her I extended treatment. He told the center she wanted distance. He listed my tools for sale, moved his mother into my house, used my workshop account for personal purchases, and told relatives not to contact me because attention might trigger a relapse. I placed copies of the messages on the dining table. No thick legal binder, no dramatic presentation, just screenshots, dates, listings, and ordinary lies arranged in the order they occurred. My cousin picked up one page. Hannah looked at another. Grant laughed. "Calvin manufactured these." Calvin spoke for the first time. "The listings came from your account. The messages came from the family group. The payments came from Frank's bank statements. You have no business interfering. Frank and Ellen gave me a bed when I was 20 and homeless. That made his safety my business long before you decided his property was yours. Grant looked toward Hannah. This man has manipulated your father. Hannah continued reading. She found the realtor message. After he transitions to supervised housing, the property could generate significant seasonal income. She read aloud. Her voice became very quiet. You wrote this 3 days after Dad entered treatment. I was planning for possibilities. You told me we were protecting the house. We were. You told me Dad asked for extended treatment. That is what I understood. From whom? The counselor. Which counselor? Grant did not answer. Hannah lifted another page. You told the center I needed distance. You did need distance. That was not your decision. You could barely function. Then you should have helped me make decisions, not made them while pretending they were mine. Beverly said, Hannah, your husband was protecting you. Hannah looked at her mother-in-law sleeping beneath Ellen's quilts, eating from Ellen's china, and defending the man who had begun dividing my life before I was discharged. Did you know he had not asked Dad? Beverly looked away. That answer was enough. Grant's control began slipping. He pointed at me. You want everyone to forget what you did because you completed 2 months of rehab. No, I want them to remember what I did and still judge what you did separately. You shoved me. Yes, you terrified your daughter. Yes, you endangered people. Yes. Each answer weakened him because he had expected denial. I am responsible for the harm I caused. You are responsible for exploiting it. Grant's voice rose. Exploiting it? I handled his bills. I cleaned his house. I kept the company operating. Miguel, who had arrived at Hannah's request but remained near the dining room, spoke. You laid off 2 apprentices and tried to sell machines Frank owns. The shop was failing. It had 12 months of booked work. Grant looked around the room. The smooth husband, devoted son-in-law, and selfless protector had disappeared. In his place stood a frightened man whose authority had depended on everyone accepting his confidence as evidence. He turned toward Hannah. You know who he is. Hannah's face changed. I know who Dad was when he drank. He has not changed. Maybe not enough. But he told the truth about Easter before asking anyone to believe him tonight. Grant's jaw tightened. You are choosing an alcoholic over your husband. No, Hannah said. I am choosing to ask my own questions. Grant laughed bitterly. After everything I did for you, you deleted his voicemail. I was protecting you. You lied about his release. Because you were not ready. You sold his tools. Because he was finished. He gets to decide when he is finished. Grant looked at me. This is what you wanted. You wanted to destroy our marriage. I wanted my daughter to hear one conversation without you translating it. You think sobriety makes you a father again? The sentence landed hard. I felt anger rise, hot and immediate. 60 days earlier, I might have crossed the room. Instead, I placed both hands on the back of a dining chair. No, I said. Sobriety gives me the chance to behave like one again. Hannah decides whether I earn the relationship. I turned toward her. I love you. I am sorry for every lie, every missed call, every night you wondered whether I was alive. But I will not pretend you had no responsibility here. Grant manipulated you. You also accepted his version because checking it would have required you to face me. Both things can be true. Tears filled her eyes. I know. Do you? I called the center once. They would not tell me anything. Grant said continuing would interfere with treatment. I wanted to believe him because I was angry at you. Then the longer I waited, the harder it became to admit I had not tried hard enough. That is the truth. I am sorry. An apology is a beginning. I know. I looked around the dining room. Ellen's table. Ellen's photograph. Ellen's daughter crying beside the man who had used her exhaustion as an opportunity. I am not moving back tonight, I said. Grant stared at me. Then why are you here? To stop disappearing. I turned toward Beverly. You need to leave the guest room by Sunday evening. Hannah can decide whether you remain in her home. You will not remain in mine. Then I looked at Grant. You are no longer authorized to use my accounts, workshop, vehicles, or property. The online listings have been removed. Miguel has reopened the business. Any personal belongings you brought here will be packed carefully. I am not throwing them outside. But you will not use my grief as a lease. He sneered. You cannot order me out of my wife's father's house. Hannah spoke before I could. Grant, go home. This is home. No, our townhouse is home. You said we could stay here while Dad was away. Dad is not away. He cannot be trusted. Neither can you. The sentence silenced the room. Grant looked at his wife as though he had never considered that she might evaluate him using the same standards he applied to everyone else. You are emotional, he said. Hannah removed her wedding ring, not dramatically, just slowly, and placed it beside her plate. That sentence worked better when I still believed calm meant honest. Beverly began crying. Grant accused me of turning Hannah against him. I did not respond. He shouted that the family would regret trusting a drunk. Calvin opened the front door. You should leave before the rest of the evening becomes something Hannah has to apologize for later. Grant looked around for support. Nobody moved. Even his mother stared at the table. He left alone. The front door closed. No one applauded. Real family collapses do not need applause. Hannah sat down and covered her face. I wanted to cross the room and hold her. I also knew I had spent years expecting her to soothe pain I created. I waited. After several minutes, she stood and walked toward me. Can I hug you? She asked. Yes. She held me carefully at first, then with both arms. I smelled Ellen's shampoo in her hair. I did not say everything would be fine. Some sentences are too large to use honestly. I am here, I said. I know, she whispered. I should have been there. Yes. Her shoulders shook. I am so sorry. Then do differently next time. We ate cold pie after most relatives left. Calvin sat beside Miguel. Hannah asked about Lakeshore. I told her the truth, including the parts that made me look weak. Beverly packed a suitcase that night and stayed with another relative. Hannah returned to her townhouse. Grant arrived before her and demanded she cut contact with me until I agreed to supervise meetings. She told him to leave. He refused, so she stayed with a friend. There were no dramatic arrests or courtroom speeches. Their marriage unraveled in smaller, more painful conversations. Hannah discovered Grant had lied about other things too. He had exaggerated debts, hidden personal purchases, and told friends she was emotionally unstable whenever she disagreed with him. My addiction had not created his character. It had simply provided ideal cover. Hannah separated from him 3 weeks later. I did not celebrate. Watching your child discover that her marriage was built partly on manipulation is not victory. It is grief with different furniture. I remained in the apartment for 4 months. Every morning, I attended a meeting before work. I returned to the workshop gradually. The first day, Miguel placed my old apron on the bench without making a speech. The apprentices came back. We completed a set of library cabinets that had been delayed during treatment. My hands remembered what my confidence did not. Calvin visited every Friday. Sometimes we discussed business. Sometimes we drank coffee in silence. One afternoon, I asked why he had searched so hard for me. Ellen found me sleeping on a floor, he said. You gave me work before I deserved trust. You deserved a chance. That is what she said. He looked around the workshop. I spent years believing I had repaid both of you by becoming successful. Then I saw your tools online and realized repayment was the wrong idea. Family is not a bill that reaches zero. Hannah and I met once a week in public places at first. Coffee shops, diners, and the park near Lakeshore. She asked hard questions. Why had I refused help so long? Why had I blamed Grant before he actually became a problem? Why had I forced her to become responsible for whether I lived? I answered without hiding behind Ellen's death. I asked questions too. Why had Hannah allowed Grant to speak for her? Why had she signed group messages without reading them? Why had she smiled in photographs presenting me as toxic while still claiming she loved me? She did not call every question unfair. That was how I knew she was changing. I wanted everyone to believe we had the situation under control, she admitted. Grant always knew what to post. People praised us for setting boundaries. A boundary is something you place around yourself, I said. What he built around me was a cage. I know that now. Knowing is not the same as repairing. What would repair look like? Time. Consistency. Questions asked directly instead of through another person. She nodded. Can I come to one of your meetings? No. Surprise crossed her face. Why not? Because recovery is the one place where I need to speak without wondering whether my daughter is bleeding from every word. She looked hurt, then understood. All right. That answer mattered more than if I had allowed her inside. 5 months after Thanksgiving, I moved back into the house. Not because the property proved I'd won, but because I had spent enough sober time inside it to know the memories would not immediately drive me toward a bottle. Hannah helped unpack. She opened one of the donation boxes Grant had prepared and found Ellen's blue cardigan folded beneath old towels. She pressed it to her face and cried, "He said you wanted Mom's clothes removed." I never said that. I should have asked. Yes, we returned the clothes to the closet, but not all of them. Together, we selected items Hannah wanted and donated others to a women's shelter. That difference mattered. Grant had tried to erase Ellen for convenience. Hannah and I learned to let go through choice. The guest room became a reading room instead of another bedroom. I did not want anyone assuming empty space was an invitation. The workshop stabilized. I reduced my hours and trained Miguel to manage daily operations. Calvin and I created a paid apprenticeship for men leaving recovery programs. We called it Ellen's Table because Ellen believed everyone deserved one safe place to sit without earning the meal first. Apprentices received wages, transportation help, and clear expectations. Sobriety was supported but not performed for publicity. Nobody had to tell his worst story to prove gratitude. Hannah volunteered occasionally, but only after asking. The first Thanksgiving after the confrontation, I hosted 6 people: Hannah, Calvin, Miguel, 2 apprentices, and a woman named Denise from my recovery group who had nowhere else to go. Hannah cooked the turkey. I made Ellen's stuffing from the stained recipe card that had helped push me toward treatment. Before dinner, Hannah placed her phone inside a drawer. "No photographs?" I asked. "One afterward, if everyone agrees." "What changed?" "I am tired of using pictures to prove moments were healthier than they felt." We ate at Ellen's table. No speeches about healing. No captions about toxic people. Nobody pretended the year had been easy. After dessert, Hannah asked whether we could take one photograph beneath the maple leaf chandelier. Everyone agreed. Calvin set the timer. In the picture, my hand rested on the back of Hannah's chair. She was not leaning toward me or away from me. She was simply there. I keep the photograph in the workshop. Hannah has never posted it. Grant eventually sent me a letter. He wrote that pressure had caused him to make decisions he regretted. He said he had tried to protect Hannah from the consequences of my addiction and had become too controlling. He asked whether we could meet so he could explain. I did not reply. Explanations had already been his favorite tool. Accountability would have required naming the deleted voicemail, the false release story, the realtor message, the tool listings, and the attempt to treat my absence as permanent. He named none of them. Hannah finalized their separation quietly. She did not ask me to pay her expenses or rescue her from every consequence. She moved into a smaller apartment, continued counseling, and learned that loneliness was safer than living beside someone who edited reality. I respected her for that. Respect did not erase what happened. It made a new relationship possible beside it. I have been sober for 3 years now. I still think about drinking. Anyone who tells you the desire disappears completely may be telling his truth, but it is not mine. Some nights, grief returns with Ellen's voice. Some holidays, I look at her empty chair and feel anger that everyone else kept aging after she stopped. The difference is that I no longer treat pain like an instruction. I call someone. I attend a meeting. I make coffee. I walk to the workshop and run my hand across unfinished wood until I remember that repair happens through repeated contact, not one dramatic act. People sometimes ask whether I forgive Hannah. The question assumes forgiveness is one decision made on a clean morning. Mine has been slower. I forgive the frightened daughter who believed her husband because her father had trained her to distrust him. I do not excuse the adult woman who refused to verify the truth because avoidance felt easier. I love both versions of her. I maintain boundaries with both. She has a key to my house now, but she asks before using it. That small habit means more than an emotional speech. Grant taught me something I wish I had learned without him. Being wounded does not make a person trustworthy. My grief did not make every accusation against me false. My addiction did not make every action taken against me justified. Two truths can stand together without canceling each other. I harmed my daughter. Her husband exploited that harm. She was manipulated. She also chose convenience over questions. I deserved treatment. I did not deserve erasure. Recovery was not the moment I walked out of Lakeshore. Recovery was the parking lot, the coffee, the apartment, the unanswered calls, the Thanksgiving doorway, and every morning afterward when I decided not to hand my life back to alcohol or to people who used my past as ownership papers. The strongest revenge was not exposing Grant in front of relatives. It was becoming someone his lies could no longer accurately describe. He called me unstable. I remained calm. He called me finished. I reopened the workshop. He told Hannah I had disappeared. I returned without demanding she deny her own pain. He expected the broken alcoholic to rage, threaten, and prove him right. Instead, I admitted what I had done, named what he had done, and refused to carry either man's shame as my entire identity. Ellen once told me that good furniture was not built by hiding the joints. It was built by making the joints strong enough to be seen. My family spent years hiding every crack beneath photographs, excuses, and polite holiday dinners. We are less polished now. We are also more honest. Hannah and I sometimes sit beneath the maple tree with black coffee. We talk about her students, the workshop, or nothing important. She does not apologize every time. I no longer need her to. An apology repeated without new behavior becomes another way of asking the injured person to provide comfort. She demonstrates change by showing up, asking directly, and accepting answers she does not like. That is enough for today. For anyone who has ever completed the hardest work of your life and looked up to find the person you trusted missing, remember this. Their absence may reveal something about them, but it does not erase what you accomplished. Keep walking. Sometimes the person waiting for you will not be the one who made the promise. Sometimes it will be someone who remembers the safe place you gave them 20 years earlier. Kindness rarely returns on schedule, but it does not disappear. And sometimes the life you save without realizing it becomes the hand reaching for you when your own family has forgotten where to look. So tell me honestly, if your adult child believed a spouse's lies and allowed you to be erased while you were fighting addiction, would you give them time to rebuild the relationship after they admitted their failure? Or would not showing up on the hardest day of your life be a betrayal too deep to forgive?